Well, good hump day morning, friends. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here, and let's wake up the football gods here on this hump day. Hope you had all your taco dreams come true last night. Yesterday was the last day of the Dallas Cowboys being in Oxnard. They are now in Los Angeles. And I gotta be honest with you. I will have that Freudian slip from time to time. I will say the San Diego Chargers all the time because, I was fortunate enough to go out to San Diego one time and fell in love with the area. Oh, my God, the weather, the coastline, the views. Oh, geez. And I'm still trying to understand how you leave San Diego for L.A. Nothing against L.A. I love L.A. and stuff. It's nice. It's nice you got everything there, but it's hot in L.A. San Diego, it's kind of cool. It's laid back. The lifestyle is just totally different. But be that as it may, the Cowboys are in Los Angeles to practice with the Chargers and get ready for their Saturday night preseason game. And I'm wondering if this practice is going to get chippy, much like they did last week against Denver. The interesting thing will be is how much more will starters actually play. I don't expect Dak and Zeke to play at all in preseason. And this is the thing that is still crazy to me because I want you to think about this. If you played football back in the day like I did, high school football, I think we did more contact work in 2 days than an NFL team will do the whole offseason. That's a fact. Think about this. Dak and Zeke will go into the season with the last time that they actually had been contacted being back at the playoff loss against the 49ers. That'll be the first time that Zeke Elliott actually gets tackled. I just don't recognize NFL football now, how you can go ahead and do this, how you can prepare for games when you're not actually tackling people. There's got to be so much rust. I mean, in practice, you're kind of like, going through the motions and things. You get a little bit of hitting and stuff, the offensive line, defensive line. But really working on tackling skill and things like that, it's kind of crazy. The fact that the Cowboys only had 2 missed tackles is amazing to me and is a testament to Dan Quinn and what he's doing. It was interesting listening to Leighton Vander Esch when they asked him how long it took before he bought into Dan Quinn, and it was like day one. And that's what you want. You want guys that are literally ready to run through a brick wall for you. That is the type of coach that you need to have in the NFL. And lo and behold, I woke up this morning, still with the cold and things, and I'm trying to do the best I can not to cough, okay? I'm working hard to try and get through one of these without coughing because I know it's annoying to hear me cough into the microphone. I've had my coffee, I've had tea, I've had plenty of water, so the throat gets dry and just kind of says, hey, I'm photobombing you. But anyway, that's the kind of coach that you need, that guys believe in and want to give their best to. Jimmy Johnson was that guy that, demanded respect, and guys would run through a brick wall for him. So lo and behold, I wake up this morning. First thing I see is about Calvin Hill, Calvin Hill losing his wife, rest her soul. And then the next article is, who could be the next coach of the Cowboys after McCarthy? People, can we chill on this just a little bit? Can we take a little bit of a break? Can we at least get to the regular season before we're ready to fire the guy? I mean, I'm wearing I survived the Jason Garrett years. I want you to understand that Jason Garrett took over. He was 5-3 that first year. We went through 8-8, 8-8, 8-8 before we finally made the playoffs. It wasn't until the 5th year that we had 12 wins with Jason Garrett. That's it. That's it. 5 years. Now, I'm not going to really hold the first year against Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy coming through and dealing with somebody else's team in a COVID year, losing your starting tackles, losing your quarterback, you're not expected to do much. You really just aren't not. I'm sorry. I have to give you a pass on that year. That year was a total pooch screw. And then to turn it around to be 12-5 and make it into the playoffs, and here it is, we haven't even gotten to the season, and we're talking about firing. And the thing about the article that was interesting, to say the least, was the candidates that they had to replace Mike McCarthy. They said, of course, the pipe dream being Sean Payton. Now, Sean Payton, I will point out that over the course of the last 5-6 years, Sean Payton has been a playoff team with like 12-4 teams and 13-3 teams, and hasn't been back to the Super Bowl. Hall of Fame quarterback, great defense, and he wasn't getting them over the hump. He was one and done with some of those great teams. Yeah, lost in the wild cards. So sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. Washington fans wished for anybody but Kirk Cousins, and they ran him out of town. And since that time, they've been trying everybody but Kirk Cousins and have yet to really find a quarterback. We'll see if Carson Wentz ends up being the guy, but, you know, you got the local news stations doing a hatchet job on him and basically saying, is this your last chance, buddy? You got run out of Philadelphia. You got run out of the Colts. You think Washington's going to run you out too? So be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. Jerry Jones, thought, hey, I can have any number of 500 coaches with the team he put together end up being Super Bowl champions. Well, I guess that says that maybe you can't put the team together because we've tried a whole bunch of different coaches and we ain't winning shit. So they had Sean Payton, okay, but I pointed out that New Orleans holds his rights till 2024, which means you're going to have to give up 2 number 1 picks. And as I look at it and say, you could basically say, would you give up Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb? Because that's kind of what you'd have to do to get Sean Payton. And I'm not sure that getting him ends up meaning that you're going to win the Super Bowl when you don't have the picks to get the guys you need. Because Lord knows we're not signing free agents. Then the next one was Kellen Moore is being groomed to be the head coach. I'm like, Kellen Moore? Kellen Moore? Seriously? And I'm like, do you think players are ready to run through a brick wall for Kellen Moore the way they are for Dan Quinn? And the third one he had was Debo Sweeney, another college coach. Okay. At least put Dan Quinn in the mix. And now I've been on record saying that maybe Dan Quinn is a Wade Phillips, where he's a better hands-on teacher of players than a head coach. But I will also say that as a head coach, he took the Atlanta Falcons to a Super Bowl. That's more than Jason Garrett did. And in recent history, that's more than Mike McCarthy's done recently. And that's more than Sean Payton's done recently as well. So I have to say that you got to at least put him on the list. I'm just sorry. You just have to. You have to look at it from the standpoint of the Cowboys, at least, if you were talking about Dan Quinn. And I'm saying, let's table some of this who's going to be next coach talk. But I would have to say, from a standpoint of having somebody who would be able to work with the Cowboys, who I think the team actually trusts his view, you have to look at it and say, Dan Quinn seems to get what he wants. That Dan Quinn seems to have full autonomy with the defense. And maybe that could translate with the offense. And I look at this and say, if you can get yourself a great offensive coordinator to work under Dan Quinn and say, you've got the defense, I've got the offense over here, that could be a match that would be made in heaven. But who knows what the talk is. But like I said, let's go ahead and get to at least preseason game number 2 and see, as we play some more of our regular players, if things look a little bit better than some guys who may not even be practice squad guys. So Barry Church was on with Colin Cowherd and talking about discipline as well as Diggs and Micah Parsons. Is Diggs, who is always trashed, that, he's a gambler, he's not really a good cornerback and stuff. I'm sorry. You know what? I'll take a cornerback that gets 11 interceptions anytime, okay? Let him get beat a few times. I'm okay with that. Those takeaways are gold. Let's listen into it.
I am one of those. I don't care if the defense hits late. I can live with defensive penalties. I really can. In fact, I saw a story this weekend where the teams that do well in college football are generally top 20 in penalties because I think aggressive works. But I am concerned, Barry, when you got 11 of them on offense and you got an offensive coach, that feels sloppy. What's your takeaway?
I'm with you on that. It did look a little sloppy to me. I mean, look, we all know it's the preseason, and we all know, there was a lot of young guys playing out there, a lot of your household names like Dak and Zeke. Those guys really didn't play at all in this game, but 17 penalties is 17 penalties. And to me, that's a little bit worrisome, especially coming from a team last year who led the league in penalties by 11 all of last year. And then you turn around and look at that, playoff game last year against the 49ers. They had 14 penalties in that game as well. So to me, this is a market-an undisciplined team. And when you go towards the regular season, when games really count, I'm not so sure this Cowboys team is good enough to continually overcome, big penalty numbers in a game. So this is something that this coaching staff and these leaders on the team, these players, are going to have to rectify if they want to have a successful season this year.
No, that's a great way to put it. If you have to overcome 100 yards in penalties every year, you're facing another team. It's called the officials. So, Micah Parsons is a home run. And the Cowboys, to their credit, have hit some home runs in the draft. He's an interesting player where you could argue, because they lost Randy Gregory, you could put him in a pass rush role. I mean, what do you do with Micah Parsons, who, he's a great linebacker, but this league is about pass rushers. Everybody needs a pass rusher. You lose Randy Gregory. You don't land Von Miller. How would you use Micah?
I would use Micah similar to how Dan Quinn has been using him, in his rookie year, kind of like a chess piece. He's kind of like a defensive weapon. You have him at that, stack linebacker position. You can use his speed, his sideline ability to track down any run game they have out there. He's great in coverage as well. But to me, where he stands out, like you said, is rushing the passer. Whether you have him lined up over the center, over the edge, creating stunts with DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, this guy is all over the field. He's kind of like a defensive weapon. I would kind of have him in that, hybrid linebacker role. Is he the best overall linebacker in the National Football League? I'm not so sure about that. But when you talk about being able to do both, stacked in the second level of the linebacking core and then rushing the passer, I believe he's the best hybrid linebacker in the National Football League and a heck of a weapon for Dan Quinn to use.
Yeah, no, he is special. I want to talk about Trayvon Diggs. So Trayvon, he shut his social media down because he was getting roasted because he had a, listen, man, you could be a great player. You have a bad day at practice. You don't want to go on social media. But I do think there's a narrative out there, Barry, with Trayvon that's fair. Like a Jalen Ramsey, he's a risk taker. The difference is Jalen is probably, Jalen's about as good as we've seen in a decade in terms of playmaking, length, strength. So Trayvon takes big risks, and he gets some scoop and scores. But you've been to camp. You've looked at it. Does he need to scale back on that? Because, man, I'm just going on social media. It wasn't pretty. He had guys getting
Who cares about social
past
media?
him and over the top of him a lot. What do you make of his style?
I would never want to take away, from his gambling ability. To me, I'd rather have a guy out there who gambles. He might give up a couple yards, but at any given moment, that guy can change the game with a pick six or an interception or some type of forced fumble. So I love his gambling mentality when he's out there. I think he needs to, work on his technique a little bit better at the line of scrimmage. I think he lives too much on the dangerous side when you talk about letting receivers get it over the top, thinking he can make up speed that way. All the guys in the league are fast nowadays, so he's going to have to work on his technique a little bit. But I would never want to take away, from his gambling mentality out there. That's how he was able to get 11 interceptions and how he was able to be out there and be a game changer for the Dallas Cowboys defense. So to me, stick with that game changing mentality, but just work on the technique just a little bit.
So a couple years ago, I thought Dallas, between Gallup and they drafted CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Tony Pollard had some juice. And I was like, boy, the league's kind of pivoting to a weapons league. They got some nice weapons. Well, Amari's gone, your best route runner. And Cedric Wilson, who I thought was really underrated, he's gone. So CD's fine. He can move up, but Gallup's off an ACL. I don't know who their three is. Are you a little worried that they could become incredibly dependent on CD Lamb on the perimeter to make plays? A twisted ankle, he's out 3 weeks. They don't have a one. Does that worry you?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Colin. It's definitely extremely worrisome to me. I'm going into this season. Like you said, CeeDee Lamb, he's a bona fide number one. I'm not worried about him. I think he'll go out there and he'll ascend to be a rising star in this league when you talk about the wide receiver room. But overall, I think the Cowboys are depending on a lot of unproven talent. You got a guy like Jalen Tolbert, who they got in the third round, out of South Alabama. They're going to be relying on guys like him. Noah Brown, who's had a handful of catches in this National Football League, and a couple of late round draft picks last year, and undrafted free agents this year. So to me, that room it's kind of scary. And
kind of thin.
If Dak Prescott has the ability to go out there and elevate those guys' game out there to get this offense to where it needs to be. But when you're relying on a lot of unproven talent out there, I'm not so sure how many dividends you're going to prove from there. Because right now you got, Dalton Schultz as your number two tight or your number two option behind CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
And Dalton Schultz is a good tight end, but I'm not so sure he's dynamic enough to be your bona fide number two. So to me, this wide receiver room, this passing attack, it's got some work to do.
All right, Barry Church, he does the Players Lounge.
All right, so that's interesting. Now, we have actually some breaking news that just came across the board here, too, with the Chargers as we get ready to take them on in practice. Safety Darwin James, oh, my God, gets a massive deal. 4 years, $76 million in new money. He will be the highest paid safety. $29 million in the first year is also a record. Wow. And, I'm going to go into this in another video because I'm about to start hacking and things. But you actually think of what the Cowboys were able to do, and I don't want to defend Stephen Jones. Jaron Kearse. Jaron Kearse has got a 2-year, $10 million deal. And the difference between Darwin James, and see, there's perception and there's reality. The difference between Jaron Kearse and Darwin James is Darwin James had 75 solo tackles. Jaron Kearse had 67. Quarterback hits, Darwin James had 7. Jaron Kearse had 6. Tackles for loss, Jaron Kearse had actually 9 to Derwin James' 7. Sacks, Derwin James had 2. Kearse had 1. Interceptions, they both had 2. So we are getting play that's, and I'm not going to say that the Jaron Kearse is Darwin James after one season, but production-wise last year, it was not far apart. Jaron Kearse doesn't get the love that he should, and you got to actually look at that and say that was a bargain and a good move by the Dallas Cowboys. We'll have more today with the Chargers and Cowboys practicing and so on, but you know how we roll.